People often ask me how difficult it is as an outsider, a white man, to gain the trust of indigenous communities that have been colonized and abused for centuries. In my 37 years of filmmaking, I found most Aboriginal people to be guarded and skeptical, rightfully suspicious as they are of outsiders coming to, quote, tell their story. Most communities are incredibly welcoming, but talking about sacred places or filming ceremony can take years of trust building. In the Rift Valley of Ethiopia, the birthplace of humanity, you can really feel that people have been living here a long time. There's a cultural depth, an ancient wisdom, a sense of confidence that you can see in the way people walk. We were very fortunate in Ethiopia to have an introduction from and the support of Wolde Tadessa, the Rift Valley Program Officer for the Christensen Fund. Tadessa was born in the Gamo Highlands and is a respected elder there. So when I first arrived for my research trip in the Gamo Highlands in 2008, I was taken to the sacred Dorbo Meadow to meet the elders who guard and are responsible for the area. I stood at the edge of the meadow, waiting, and my local guide and cultural liaison, Dr. Metasabia Bekele, asked me, "Why aren't you filming?" And I said, "Well, I haven't met the elders yet." And he said, "They know why you're here. I prepared the way. Please, begin filming." So I just started filming these scenes. The amazing thing about the elders of the Gamo Highlands is how eager they are to tell their story. They were so happy that someone was there to listen. Over the following 4 days, our work revolved around the New Year celebration of Maskala, and Dorbo Meadow was the center of the action. I think my hosts knew that there was going to be trouble, because on the morning of the opening fire ceremony, I was taken to a small sacred grove far away from Dorbo. It was a beautiful ceremony, but apparently there was a lot of tension back in the main meadow. There were rumors that the local Kalahewat, or Word of Life denomination of evangelical Christians, might disrupt the traditional Maskala ceremony. Later that day, as we drove in on the road at the edge of Dorbo Meadow, a sea of young men came running up the road, chanting and singing. Like a wave, they surged around the car. It was scary, and I didn't know what was going on. It turned out they were supporters of the traditional leaders, and they knew who we were, so they were friendly. But they were enraged at what was happening in the meadow up above. You'll have to watch the film to see what happened, but my hosts kept me down in the lower meadow. I didn't know it at the time, but it was for my safety. Brides were being presented there. It was joyous. Everyone seemed excited and happy. But after a while, I could feel that everyone was getting worried and distracted, and it took me some time to see what was going on up above on the hill. The Kalahewat group, Protestant Christians, had started building a structure in the middle of the sacred meadow, piercing the ground, which is totally taboo, right in the middle of the ceremony. It was crazy. I put my camera on a tripod to stabilize the long lens shot and just started filming. Suddenly there were gunshots, rocks were flying through the air.
So who's shooting who?
And people were screaming. And I still didn't know what was going on. Meanwhile, and I did not know this at the time, a young Ethiopian filmmaker I had briefly met Chambe Befatari Asefa, was up in the crowd on the hill with his video camera shooting. We were able to put Chambe's footage together with what I shot to capture a scene you hear about a lot but rarely see, as the Christians disrupted what they no doubt would call a pagan ceremony. And the police, who came to maintain order, seemed to be protecting the people who were building the church. As we left the scene hours later, as it was getting dark, someone threw a rock at our car. There was a loud, jarring sound like a gunshot, and the windshield was cracked. We just kept driving. In hindsight, I've realized that this conflict was simmering around us during the whole 6 weeks we were filming in the Gamo Highlands. But without full translation and explanation, I was really just understanding our story slowly as I was watching it unfold around me, documenting things that only made sense later in the editing room. One interview with the guardian of the sacred Nagasa forest was disrupted by a crowd of local Christians who gathered around behind me as I was filming and apparently didn't like the fact that I was interviewing a traditional elder. They made so much noise and made my interview subject so uncomfortable that we ended the interview. And the next day, when we went to a place called Zozo, another sacred area, this time for a traditional wedding, the Orthodox Christians erected loudspeakers and made so much noise that the wedding ceremony was ruined. It was very troubling. In this case, our friend Mako Degiso, who you meet in the film, was deeply upset that he could not host this wedding ritual for his son in the proper way, without disruption, interference, and harassment. The story the elders of Gamo want told is that they take care of their land ecologically and spiritually. All they want is respect, not to be evangelized, not to be attacked. And they say it's ironic that when you look around the world, it seems that Christians aren't taking very good care of the earth.